Welcome to another episode of Viatorian Voices Conversations on the Way. As young adults head to college, some big questions arise and get asked many times. What do you want to major in? Then what do you want to do for a career? In college, you may try a few different majors and types of classes, and eventually you work your way toward a degree and next steps, a volunteer program, graduate school, job applications, different jobs and roles within a career, and more. Over the course of a few episodes here, we want to talk to different Viatorian young adults who are a bit further down this road and invite them to offer some insights and reflections about how they worked through it. We hope their insights and discernment experience can benefit those working through a discernment of their own. These episodes are an extension of our Viatorian Young Adult Accompaniment, a network of Viatorian connected young adults in college and postgrad life who stay plugged into Viatorian life through our private Instagram, through regular check-in texts and DMs, through some online avenues including a faith-sharing group and a GroupMe, and the friendships they sustain among themselves. To join in, request to follow at ViatorianYA on the way on Instagram, or visit bit.ly/YA on the way, all lowercase, to share a life update with us and get looped in. Today, we'll talk to two young adults who work in pastoral ministry as high school campus ministers. Iris Sanchez is an alumna of Cristo Rey St. College Prep, a Viatorian-endorsed high school in Waukegan, Illinois. She graduated in 2018 and went on to study criminal justice at Roosevelt University. During college, she stayed in touch with Mr. Jim Dippold, the director of campus ministry at Cristo Rey St. and helped out with retreats, corporate work study support, and other things at the school. After college, she was hired by Cristo Rey St. as a campus minister and also teaches freshman theology. Ben Paolelli is an alumnus of St. Viator High School in Arlington Heights, Illinois. He graduated in 2015 and went on to study history and secondary education at Northwestern University. As he finished undergrad, he discerned a call to ministry and went on to graduate school at the University of St. Mary of the Lake, where he earned a master's in pastoral studies. Ben now works as director of campus ministry at Notre Dame College Prep in Niles, Illinois, where he also teaches freshman theology. I'm pre-associate Dan Masterton, and it was my pleasure to host this conversation for us. For starters, I asked my guests to talk a bit about their undergrad studies and how they worked through their course of study towards graduation and their first job. You'll hear first from Iris and then from Ben. Enjoy the conversation.
A lot of ups and downs, I feel like, through college. When I kind of started out, I started as a psychology major, which I was like, okay, there's a lot I can do with this. And I started kind of with that hope to come back. And I joked, it's funny because I joked with Jim and Christina who work here. And I was like, I'm going to come back and steal a job here, find a place here at school.
You
and
called
I
your
used
shot.
to say that. Yeah. So I used to say it jokingly. And so I did come back eventually with a criminal justice major. And so it was a little surprising. I didn't kind of know where that would fall into play. I want to say I switched my major around my sophomore year. And it was after taking a social justice class where I was sitting there presenting to a bunch of peers about kind of immigration reform and the need for awareness. And I realized that no one in there, the demographic was a lot different than I was used to in high school. And for everyone, it was kind of this awe moment of I had no idea these were immigration myths or anything of that sort. And kind of from there, I kind of took on kind of a need to go into a major that focused on people. And so I don't know, I got really interested into the law side of this. And so it started off kind of with that immigration topic. And so I really enjoyed all the classes, but I think there was a little part of me that was like, okay, I don't see myself as a police officer yet. I don't see it kind of there. And so I think for my freshman year of college, I would come back occasionally and work with Jim on helping out with retreats. And it was pretty I would come in on weekends and kind of just as a side job type of thing. And I loved it. And so I didn't envision kind of a campus ministry position. I didn't think that was going to be available for me at the time. And eventually I was a semester away from graduating and was talking to Jim, and he said, he offered it up, and I knew in that moment, I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. And so now I kind of get to do everything that I loved in high school and as a profession. And I've loved it ever since. And I get to teach one class of freshmen, so it gives me kind of acquainted with the new classes every year. And so yeah, I think that's kind of where college was a bit of a struggle, kind of starting off as a first gen and trying to figure out what I like to do, not having a lot, too many people in my background that did complete college. So kind of being there and playing around with different classes, different fields, it kind of brought me over to kind of the people side of it, to say the least.
Yeah. So you're a bit of a trailblazer. It's a good intro to your background. Ben,
Yeah.
how did you work your way to your major and through your time in undergrad toward what you finished with for your degree and everything?
Yeah, so I started out as a history major at Northwestern, and I really thought that I was going to end up being a high school history teacher. I kind of had honed in on that, once my dreams of being a Disney Imagineer were dashed by my not being very good at math. You kind of need to be good at math to design roller coasters. Um, so that was, mid high school, I kind of shifted and was like, well, I like history. I had Mr. Knoll at Vider, and I was his last class was my freshman year. So like, loved my history classes at Vider, and I just loved talking about history. So I thought, well, I'm going to be a history teacher. I've got older brothers that are teachers too, so it was kind of like the thing I was going to do. It was just sort of what I sort of automatically went to. And so I went through college basically 3.5 years or so thinking that's what I was going to do. And it was really right when I was about to start student teaching my senior year at Northwestern that I started to feel a little bit like, I don't know, unsatisfied. It felt like there was something missing from where I was going. And it just felt a little unfulfilling. So I had sort of a little like identity crisis of like, I have no idea if I really want to do this. I started looking at other history jobs. Like, do I want to work in a museum? Do I want to work in a library?
Oh,
I don't know.
interesting.
I was thinking about all these different things. And finally, my mom was the one that was like, have you prayed about this? And I was like, oh, maybe that would be a good idea.
Good advice, Mom.
So yeah, so she was like, why don't you make a list of your interests, your strengths, your weaknesses, that kind of thing. Take that to the Adoration Chapel and pray with that list. And so I'm lucky I had a 24-hour Adoration Chapel right by my house, so it was really convenient. So I made my list and I went to the chapel and I'm praying and I'm just looking at this list and praying about it. And then suddenly out of nowhere, it wasn't like the voice of God suddenly opened up the heavens and said, Ben, you will be a campus minister. But in that moment, the words campus minister popped into my head. And I wrote it down at the bottom of the list with like an exclamation point. I still have that list too. I can send you the picture of it sometime. But
Cool.
but it was at that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I love my faith. I love working with young people, and I loved every moment of campus ministry at Vider, and then even at Northwestern, I was super involved in the Catholic Center there. And I was like, how did I miss this? It was kind of right in front of me this whole time. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I feel like I'm called to do. And so it was then I finished my student teaching, and I actually student taught at Vider, and I got to teach honors world history, which was Mr. Knoll's class.
Oh
And
my
so it
God.
was like all these blessings that I got to do exactly what I had dreamed of doing back in high school. And now I knew what I wanted to do moving forward. So it was like just perfect opportunity for me. So I finished my student teaching, and then I looked around for grad school programs that would be good for preparing me for ministry. And I settled on the University of St. Mary of the Lake up at Mundelein Seminary. They have a program for lay people. I mean, it is a seminary, so there were seminarians there too, but learning to become priests. But I was able to take classes there in scripture and leadership and ministry, especially. So learning how to accompany people in the faith, which is something that I'd been doing even at Northwestern and even before that at Vider when I was a student. But that degree program was a 3-year part-time program. That kind of was my first official, dipping in my toes to ministry, because I had to do an internship that first year, which was 2019 into 20. So it got interrupted by COVID, but I did an internship in campus ministry here at Notre Dame. And that was where I got introduced to Notre Dame. I live really close to Notre Dame. I always have, but as the youngest of 4 brothers, all of the older brothers went to St. Viator. I certainly wasn't going to go somewhere else. I didn't want to go anywhere else. So that's where I went to high school. But Notre Dame, I've always passed it, and I never thought I'd actually end up working here. But I did my internship that first year of my grad school program. COVID kind of ended that, and then 2 years later, a job opened up here, and I applied. And I think my familiarity with the place and sort of the vision that I had was in tune with what they wanted for campus ministry. So here I am.
Nice. So you had that connection from your grad school internship. Iris, what was it like to keep in touch with Mr. Dippold and some of the people at Cristo Rey St. Martin? And how did you kind of keep those connections going and then ultimately kind of realize that maybe you wanted to follow that to a job when it became possible?
Yeah, I think leaving the school, I think for some people like graduating high school, it's like I can't wait to leave and never look back. And for me, it was kind of the opposite. I found a lot of comfort and like love and support here in this building and with this community that I have. And now I see it kind of as a staff member with the students and with the staff. And it's just, it feels really, I guess, like even right now, I just came back from maternity leave, and it's like there's so much love and so much compassion that goes around here with the adults and students. And so I guess I just I made it a priority, I guess, to me. I would come back, and I was asked to come back to kind of give like I guess my experience with being a student at CRSM. And I did that for, I believe, corporate work study and then for the campus ministry side of it. And every time I would come back, I like would connect with new students or like siblings of like people that I went to school with. And so it just felt really familiar, and kind of like Ben said, like I really enjoyed just like the atmosphere of like working with young people. And so, yeah, I think keeping in touch with Jim, I think he helped me kind of through like a lot in high school and kind of realizing my love for volunteering and just like social justice work. And so kind of maintaining that like relationship, it kind of, as soon as we reconnected while I was in college, it was just like, it was there. And I was like, I think there's something in the future here for CRSM and me.
Yeah, that's a great insight that some people want to leave
Mhm.
high school behind entirely. But for a lot of students from St. Viator High School, from Cristo Rey St. Martin,
Mhm.
it's the total opposite, where we build
Yeah.
really strong connections with friends, with faculty and staff, and with the school community. And then it's like a positive place to come home to later on in life, whether you get a job there or not. But then thinking of now working there, I think sometimes in adulthood, we get into jobs that aren't necessarily the most fulfilling, but maybe they help us make a living, they help us pay the bills, they help us support a family. I think for those of us in ministry, maybe that's not so much of a separation, but you can kind of do both at once, even if maybe it's not the most like financially lucrative work that we could possibly be doing. So how do you view that now working at Cristo Rey St. Martin? Like to what extent do you feel like you're fulfilled and like right where you need to be? And then like, is there any concern about like maybe you're leaving money on the table, or it might be harder to support yourself or your family as you continue growing up?
No, I've felt very fulfilled. I think kind of something that I also related to with Ben was kind of that in between college and here. We didn't really have an active like campus ministry like location at college. And so I feel like there was always like that kind of that missing spot for me. And so kind of being back, I think even on a personal basis, it's helped me, and like obviously professionally, just like learning. I didn't come from a teaching background, so kind of getting to the school and finding out I had to teach a section of theology, that was a little bit of a fear factor for me. I said, how am I going to teach students? I've never done education in college. But no, there was like, I feel like I got a lot of mentors. Jacob Larson, who was actually my like theology teacher, he taught me, we co-taught for a whole year. And so that was super beneficial. And then just personally, I think CRSM kind of being here as a student, it like ignited kind of my faith, and then it's kind of brought me back to it because I think I did reach a low in that too. And so I think, I don't know, overall, I feel like I'm really blessed where I am, like financially, personally, it's brought me like a lot of benefits, I think, the school overall. And so, yeah, I don't think, I know kind of like you said, I feel like I'm doing what I love. And I know I hear a lot of people, I knew like working in an office, I was like, I don't think that's for me, maybe
Yeah.
growing up. And I kind of, I missed out on like a lot of social interaction, especially during the pandemic during college. And so coming back to an environment where I have students coming in every 5 minutes to check in and just kind of like chat. Even that, just being that presence here for them, it's really fulfilling in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Ben, how do you see that now working in campus ministry in the high school? Do you have any sense of like leaving money on the table or worrying about your stability? Or is there just a full peace and joy about being where you are and living out your vocation in this way?
Yeah, I'm doing what I love, and I'm the director of campus ministry. I'm a department of one. Um, so we've got 800 kids here. So there's a lot to do, and there's a lot of different frying pans have a lot of different fires right now, but it's all stuff I love doing. So it's whether it's planning what am I going to do for the freshman retreat at the end of the year, or we just finished a Kairos and it was our second Kairos of the year, and we had 4 adults on it because 2 of them caught COVID right before the retreat. So we had to deal with all of that. And so it's all these little like mini crises, but I actually love them. It's like not like it's not bad stuff. It's stuff that is like challenges to me, but it's exactly what I want to be doing. And like it kind of is parallel to like what I'm trying to say to the students all the time is like you're going to go through difficulties, but it's you can get through them with God. Like I want to really emphasize that God loves each and every one of you, and he loves me too. Like I've been so blessed in everything that's happened to me throughout my journey here and even while I've been working here. It just seems like, you know, as long as I stay close to God myself, you know, and I try to go to daily mass as often as I can before school, and I pray the rosary, and I really try to stay in a state of prayer, you know, throughout the day, and that really has helped me too, because it's not an easy job, but it's a fantastic job, and it's, I like to say, it's not a job, it's a calling, and it's been great.
Yeah, that's well said. I sometimes when I talk to people about career discernment that they're going through, I think sometimes the grass is greener mentality sets in where you wonder if you left this job and got a new job, things would be better or smoother or calmer. And I always try to bring up to people, don't look for a job with no problems because those basically don't exist, but look for a job whose problems you like. And the way I hear you talking about it, Ben, and some of the stuff you've said, Iris, too, is like there are problems that come up, but like you said, Ben, they're the problems you want to confront and solve, and that you think you can bring God into it with you and bring the right resolution or the right response. And I think that's vocation, right? You've said that really well. So you've made a little bit of allusion, both of you guys, to how prayer supported you along the way. And Ben, you talked about your experience in adoration and the way that you bring prayer into your daily work life. Are there any other ways that prayer or your spiritual life, or even like the things you've experienced in your school or your parish communities, have chipped into that process as you've gone through high school and college and into career life now?
Just being at Cristo Rey and then also like having those experiences with the Viatorian community. Like one that I recall, we used to do Taizé prayer a lot. And so that became something that even like those small times of like peaceful quietness and just prayer, like I had to remind myself with the busyness of college, I think sometimes you kind of overlook yourself and your prayer life sometimes. And so it brought me back to a place where I kind of had to remind myself to kind of like put God there. And then part of like the beauty of it is too that I'm kind of doing it with my students. And so like I think starting back up here, me and Jacob last year, like we really made it an emphasis. We finally have a chapel here at CRSF. And I think it's only like the third year that it's been like open like for our school. And so it's been a priority too to like use that space and like kind of expose our students to that so they know it's like kind of a common ground where anyone can walk in at any time of the day. And so sometimes I'm like, we're doing this for you guys, but it's kind of like a prayer time for myself as well, kind of like Ben said. I've been blessed to kind of have a lot of interactions now, like with Cristo Rey and like the Viatorian connection that we have. I've been able to like connect with Brother Peter and you, Dan, and then Brother Giovanni on a more regular basis. And that I feel like has also kind of just talking things out with other people that work with young people. It helps out a lot.
Yeah, and so for me, day one when I was hired here, they said, you know, we have this beautiful chapel, and they showed it to me. I was like, wow, this is a great chapel, and we don't really use it for anything. And so I was like, well, let's change that. So yeah, in the last 2 years, you know, we've started doing weekly masses. We have this long lunch period in the middle of the day called community period, just a trendy name for lunch period. It's this long period where they can go to clubs, they can do homework, visit a teacher, and eat lunch. And so I thought, well, let's have some prayer opportunities during that. And so we have started doing a weekly mass during the community period. We have local priests from the parishes around here. A lot of them are from our students' parishes. They'll come and say a quick 20, 25-minute mass. Still have plenty of time to eat afterwards. That's part of my sales pitch. But then this year, we started the weekly mass last year, my first year. This year, we started doing a weekly rosary. We've just started doing weekly adoration. And during Lent, we're doing a weekly Stations of the Cross, all during that community period time. And, you know, the response has been really good. You know, when you're starting something new, you always have to be patient with it getting into sort of the culture of the school. So like last year when we started the mass that was every week, we were getting like 5 students and sometimes 6 teachers or something like that. It would more teachers would come than students, but we've done it every week. And now we regularly get like over 20 kids for the mass every week, which is amazing. I mean, it's not a huge percentage in a school of 800, but it's 20 kids that weren't going to mass on a Friday otherwise, you know? And so I think that's going to continue to grow. And we're seeing that growth with the other things too. I mean, the rosary is still pretty new, and adoration. I mean, yesterday we had adoration, and I think easily we had 30 or 40 kids that were just going in and out there, you know. And that the beautiful thing about adoration is it doesn't have to take a long time. So like I tell them, you can just stop in there for 2 minutes, say a quick prayer, and they say, well, but I got to study for my test. Well, maybe you should say a quick prayer about your test. Like, there's this negotiation that goes on in the hallway between me and the students all the time. And for me, it's great too, because I get to be a part of these things. Like, I get to go to adoration too. I get to go to mass. I get to pray the rosary, and I get to see students that have never done these things before, or maybe they don't do them regularly. I get to see them develop a love for that too, which is a beautiful thing also.
Yeah, you guys put good voice to that being there with your students in these experiences of prayer and service and community, it's doing things you would want to do anyway, but the way that you do it with young people kind of compels you to do it with, great enthusiasm and great regularity. And it is a boost to your own life, but also it puts you right where you want to be alongside young people. And there is Jesus waiting for us to do it with him. So it's just a great deal all around, right? So maybe one last question then to think about as you're a few years into this work. There might be teenagers or college students or young adults who are doing some career discernment who might wonder, like, should I get into ministry? Even if it's just volunteering for a parish youth group or to be a religious education catechist, or it could be looking for a job in a Catholic school or in campus ministry. What would you pass along to them about the work that you're doing now? What would you want them to know? What would you want them to consider? Are there, kind of Viatorian connections or prayers or practices that have helped you get to this point or that help sustain you as you do your work now? And what would you say about that, Ben? How would you reflect on that now?
So, I mean, I mentioned that I was super involved in campus ministry at St. Viator. It was sort of like my main thing, that and band probably. I learned there, and I continued this in college, that like ministry it's for other people. So like I know that it's for other people, but I gain so much personally from it. So like being part of my faith development as a Catholic, as a young person, was being a minister, and it was such an inescapable part of my experience of the faith that it's like a part of who I am now. And so when I'm talking to somebody else who is considering it, like I would say, if you're considering it, you've probably been involved. You've probably been a minister somewhere else. You probably have those connections. I would say keep those connections strong. I mean, Brother John was a huge influence on me at St. Viator. He was the campus minister my junior and senior year there. So did a Quest retreat with him, did a Kairos retreat with him, and just his example of leadership and ministerial leadership in particular was really strong for me. And it stayed with me. Like a lot of what I learned from him back in high school, I'm still putting into practice here. And I was able to have lunch with him right before I started here, and I was just picking his brain for Kairos. I brought a notebook and I was like writing down all these notes. So what do you do in this situation? What do you do in this situation? So I would say, like, keep your connections strong. If you've got campus ministers that you worked with when you were in school, or if you've got a parish group, stay involved there and just try to like pick the brains of everybody that you can about best practices. And most importantly, keep discernment in prayer as much as you can. Like, keep praying about it. Keep praying, where do you want me to go, Lord? Where do you want me to go? And I just have found in those quiet moments when you're asking those questions, the answers really do come to you. If you're truly asking, you're truly just clear your mind of everything else, all the distractions. Ask God, what do you want me to do with my life? Lord, I'm yours. And he will answer.
That's great advice. How would you follow that up, Iris? What would you say?
No, really similarly, I would say some connections that come to mind, like first off, like Father Corey. Like that was when I was able to go to the Viatorian border trip as a high school student. And that was kind of where I realized, I was like, okay, I'm surrounded by these adult people that are doing other jobs other than like kind of the regular 9 to 5. And clearly, because campus ministry, that is one thing. You're not going to work a regular 40-hour week.
That's right.
But they all seem to have like that sense of fulfillment in their life. And I know sometimes I think I hear young people and it's very like financially driven, and I understand that, but I'm like, you are able to find kind of these careers and like kind of unique places like Cristo Rey or St. Viator, where you're able to work with your passions and with God and kind of on a daily, like day to day. And so I would say another place where like I think just like already being kind of in this space, and maybe like a high school student where I've seen like a lot of benefits to like some of our students, a VYC plug here, but like the Viatorian Youth Congress, a lot of work I didn't do VYC as a high school student, but I did a lot of kind of like social justice work, and being in a space where you're surrounded, kind of like Ben said, with like adults that do have these different jobs and these different callings, it's really eye-opening. And I feel like that's what helped me the most, I think, find kind of my path. And just like, I don't know, I think for me, it's like always emphasizing to younger people, and like, especially like seniors that are kind of like so close to the finish line of high school, is that like, it's not always a straight line. I love like kind of making that remark that like, I'm a criminal justice major working campus ministry. And like, even now I still find little connections here and there, but just reminding people kind of like similarly to Ben, like expose yourself to as many people that you can and keep those connections alive. I think anyone who works campus ministry is always going to love to have a 20-minute conversation about it anyways. So I don't know, that's just the beauty of, I think, working with people that are surrounded by like that love for God too.
I'll just echo the VYC plug. I love VYC. I attended it as a high school student. I was a YAL twice. You learn so much about the Viatorians that I didn't know just by being a part of that. So I echo the VYC plug.
I think one thing that it opened my eyes, because this is my second year going, and I believe I'm going on my third, hopefully. But I noticed after the first one, I said, there's so many like more needs in our community than I was even aware of. Like, I feel like I just graduated here, and just hearing our students talk like during those times, I feel like, I don't know, it makes me even more connected to like my job as a campus minister, being able to hear them and hear where like their prayer intentions go. But I don't know, I feel like I love it as a professional, and I also love it for the students. So a big call for VYC here.
That's it for this episode. We thank Iris and Ben for their insights and pray for their continued success and fulfillment in their work. Viatorian Voices, Conversations on the Way is a production of Viatorian Vocation Ministry. The Viatorians are professed brothers and priests, together with women and men lay associates, who proclaim Jesus Christ in his gospel and raise communities where faith is lived, deepened, and celebrated. In the footsteps of Venerable Louis Querbes and under the patronage of St. Viator, we strive to do everything well so that through us, Jesus may be adored and loved. To learn more about our community, visit Viatorians.com or follow us on social media at Viatorian USA. Those seeking support and accompaniment in exploring God's invitations for them are invited to reach out to Vocation Ministry. Send us a DM on social media or email vocations@Viatorians.com to start a conversation. Young adults seeking to engage with the Viatorians and other Viatorian young adults can request to follow our private Instagram at ViatorianYA on the way to connect in. On behalf of Brother Peter and the Viatorian community, I'm Pre-Associate Dan Masterton. Venerable Louis Querbes, inspire us. St. Viator, pray for us. Adored and loved be Jesus.